Hey, all right. Good night. So before I talked about doing a business proposal, trying to check the stream, make sure it's because last time the thing died on me. Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, it's going. It's live. Alrighty. So what I want to do here on this is go over this or this business proposal, for the purchase of a company that I'm looking at. Um, I'm not sure if I can actually get this company, but I wrote this out just in case, preparing myself and probably even getting into further talks with the owner, and maybe he can go with my plan. Now, essentially, with this plan, it's somewhat of a sweat equity buyout. Essentially, like what we want to do is go in and say, hey, we'll work your company, we'll work to pay off, what we'll owe you. So customers asking for a decent amount for the company. I think it's fair. I think it's actually fair, and probably even, I think it's fair from what I've seen or what I see with the company. What we're going to go over in this is a basic company profile, some information from their website, information about the sale, unverified numbers. So just going over numbers that the customer or that the owner has spoken about. I got rid of some of the information about the company itself, so no one hassles them or anything like that. Um, what's it called? And then what the current services are as I know it, and then proposed expansion of services, first year, second year, third year, what we plan to do with the company, to grow the business and increase the revenue, and even find new revenue streams for the business itself. Then we're going to go over, finish out going into a 5 year or fifth year. This is really a 5 year long plan, and to, getting this business up to where we want it and getting it to the profitability or or to where we believe that a sweet spot is in terms of profitability. So we go into, what's it called? Information about like what's going to happen first, second, through the fifth year in terms of splits, what we're looking on getting for each business partner, who's going to do what. Mentions my business partner in here, and we'll go over that and how and the way this plan is working, or the way I would like it to work. Again, I'll go over what the customer has said and the numbers he's told me, once we get started here. And this is the right side. Yeah, it is. Also, with each year, I have an explanation of what's happening with each year, starting on this page here, and then also the goals, and then potential increase in revenue. Some of these might actually be quite generous, but may not be possible. But this is what we're going to shoot for, and I can tell you what these numbers are based off of. And we'll go into that. Next, fifth year explained. Fifth year is getting to things that I don't really know about, and I would need some more information on. Consult with somebody on that, so that I can get a better view of what to expect in the fifth year based off of what we're looking at. Moving into heavy industrial cleaning, larger warehouses, maybe even floors. Larger warehouses, floor cleanups, and things like that, and removing of construction debris and stuff like that. So that's pretty high-end stuff. Give me a moment. Let me check that the sound is working. Yeah, that's good. All right. Actually, mute the whole computer. I'm watching this stream on my other computer. So, and then we need this information here from the current owner. I looked up a couple things just to make sure that I'm not missing anything. Also, we'll of course, we're require the services of a lawyer and an accountant, so they can actually look over the books and see certain things that we might miss, and making sure that we're actually investing in something that is worthwhile, and we're just not going to be held, pretty much ass out on this deal. All right, so let's go through it. This is my first review of the document. I typed it up starting yesterday, and I just finished it a couple minutes ago. Didn't take too long to get this done. I'm probably like 2 hours, maybe 2 hours at the most. Again, probably been faster if I was actually focusing and not reading about Facebook networking and Google networking and other stuff. All right, so first, we start off with the company profile. So that's just information about the company, where they're located, who the owners are, and then a little blurb of what they do. So this would be something. This is a decent document for potential investors, but it requires a lot more in terms of what needs to be filled in, and making sure that we do our due diligence before we even present something like this to a potential investor. I could present this to maybe like a couple close friends or something like that, but people that are really asking serious numbers, they're not going to go for the unverified numbers section. This is mainly for my business partners to see if we want to even approach this. So that's kind of the scope of this document. I want you to understand that, because if you don't, and you start to see that people will start asking you certain questions that you have to answer. You have to put this information out there, making sure, understanding what the business makes, what they're asking for, what they're coming home with, and things like that. Other employee expenses, what's paying for what's the initial investment, what's the ongoing investment, as soon as you enter into this agreement, and things like that. So that's very important. So let's go over the numbers. Numbers. Owner says business. They want to sell the business itself for $310K up front. So again, this plan is a bit of a work to own, rent to own kind of deal, where we're just going to do a bit of what we want to do is a sweat equity buyout, essentially meaning that we're going to go in and say, hey, our work is worth this much, and you're going to pay us this much off of profits, and then we're going to do what we can in terms of managing the company, and then you can just sit back and we just do what's needed to get the company going. But customer says, or the owner says, I keep on saying customer, I apologize for that. Excuse any future issues with that or mistakes. Business 310K, inventory 40K. So it's a janitorial services company, wholesale supplier of complete line of janitorial and paper products for restaurants, hotels, offices, medical clinics and facilities, nursing homes, cleaning contractors, schools and daycares, condo associations and management companies, veterinarian clinics, pet shops, and other businesses. So they just offer janitorial supplies. Well, we want to grow. I'll get more into other services that we want to add to this so we can actually grow their business to right now they're about a seven figure in total sales a year, from what he said. Again, unverified numbers, and we'll go over that. But we want to grow that to a little bit more than that and bring home a larger net income. So growing that to even more. So business 310K, inventory. So they have quite a bit of inventory there in their warehouse. I've physically been there. I'm actually one of their customers for my salon. We buy equipment from them or buy supplies from them, very small amount. So soap, paper towels, and toilet paper, and a couple other things. So they're asking in total 350K. So that's our number, and this is what we're going to have to do this is what we're going to have to look at in terms of any loans that may be needed, proper valuation, of the business, making sure that, hey, listen, I know you're asking this, but what is it really worth that? And you kind of have to verify that. Now we go to unverified numbers. So a lot of people talk numbers and say, hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. That doesn't mean anything, especially when you're buying a business, or when you're talking about your business, because numbers are, you learn to see, or you start to learn and you start to see that numbers are very subjective, meaning that I might say that this is my sales, but that's because I have, say, $50,000 in sales, but a year. But how much do I really make off of that $50,000? I might have a 10% markup on that, right? So out of that $50,000, I'm probably going to come home with maybe 10% of that, like a 10% takeaway. So, it's really 45 grand in sales and then I've already made, a 10% or so markup on it. So I'm coming home with 5,000. And that's nice, that's not bad, but it depends on what your expenses are and then what the business's expenses are. And is that enough? Owner says that they do $1 million a year in sales. Definitely have to check books on that. Things like profit and loss statements, uh, tax paperwork, and information, and what else? Tax preparation, state and local taxes, any other documents that can actually verify that they're doing this much in sales. Biggest thing is making sure that they have proper accounting. Um, they've done proper accounting, so that's gonna, that's going to be a big thing. And then that's where your accountant comes in, whether you have like a CPA or a forensic accountant. Again, I do computer consulting, so I have customers like that can probably do it for me in terms of just bartering. And they would say, hey, listen, Mike, I need this, this, and this. And then there's other people that my business partners and I, we all know. So they say that they net or take home about 120K a year. Again, these are just numbers. They could be fluff, but 120K, not bad at all. If we can come in and actually keep that up, that's not bad coming into a business that's positive cash flow. And also, this gets into loans and debt. Employees and expenses. One of the big things for me is if I'm buying a business or looking to buy a business, I want to make sure that the employees and all the other expenses are paid from the business profits, meaning that all I have to come out of pocket, if I have any money to come out of pocket, that is the asking price for the business, the book of business, and their inventory. And we'll get into making sure that you know what you're getting, what assets are included in the sale and what's not included, what intellectual property is or is not included. And then so paid from the business. I want to make sure that any labor from employees, any expenses, phones, internet, um, what else? Phones, internet, water, light, lease agreements, making sure that anything that is owned or paid for by the business is included in the sale. So if they have any vehicles, forklifts in this case, they do have a forklift. They do actually have a delivery truck as well. And then making sure expenses such as insurance and all that other stuff as well is included into all of this. Again, I'm glossing over some of this. There's some things that I am not privy to, and there's some things that we can go into further depth, and then it's going to be here later on in the document. Loans and debt. Customer says, hey, we have no debt whatsoever. Again, that remains to be seen. You also want to probably look into letter of indemnification. I think I spelled that word right. So you want to look at a letter of indemnification, making sure that if you have some type of agreement. You have some type of agreement in place that says, hey, listen, this person let me know that they don't have any debt. They showed me this proof, so on and so forth. Also, you have to do your due diligence in this. Making sure that you do your due diligence to ensure that there's nothing that you don't know. And then this letter of indemnification kind of covers you a little bit on that. Doesn't cover for everything. Sometimes you are still exposed. You just can't have an agreement that totally says wipes you clean or absolves you of any problems, wrongdoing, or anything like that, or any type of any type of obligations. Current services, plainly, they sell cleaning supplies. I asked the gentleman. He said that he was doing cleaning services as well, but he's a little bit older. I talked about this in the video that BGS posted, talking about hey, kind of like what's for breakfast. But there are people out there, business owners that are older. They're the baby boomers, and their kids don't want the businesses that they actually went ahead and built to actually support the children. So now these children don't want these lower level businesses, in a sense, that are maybe they see as demeaning or low level, in terms of like, hey, I don't want to clean toilets, or I don't want to sell just cleaning supplies. But I look at it as a bit of a diamond in the rough, or an unpolished diamond, where, excuse me, a gem of sorts, where I can expand this business into other things, excuse me, and go and buy the house and car I want because I have this business as a stream of income. So his kids don't want to take over the business, and he's getting too old. And at one point he was actually already gone from the business, but he had to come back because I believe somebody was screwing him over. So there's also that, which is another reason that may influence the fact that he just wants to sell it outright and get out of there. Of course, not everybody wants to stay and watch you grow the business and whatever, so you have to just watch out for that and understand that. So pretty much as I know it, they only sell cleaning supplies, and that's it. He did cleaning services, no longer does that. His business has dwindled a little bit. Previously, I was informed that I asked him what happened post 2008 crash, and I didn't put that on there, but I probably will have to add that. Add post 8 info. Now, this info might scare some people, but I asked him, I said, hey, listen, how did you do after the 2008 housing bubble crash? And he was like, oh, well, we lost about like 400K worth of business, or in terms of income and revenue, meaning that, he went from 400K in take home, or even 500K in take home, down to 120K. Now, there's good and there's bad in that. What that shows me is that his business is somewhat resilient, and he was resilient as a business owner to actually take that hit on the chin. Since 2008, it's been a freaking decade. The company's been open for about 18 years now, and he was able to take that hit on the chin and then still bring home 120K now, currently. Again, unverified numbers. This doesn't mean anything, but at the same time, I will take it at face value and say, hey, that's actually pretty good. I can grow that even after this and going into the next recession that is slated to occur. So first year, proposed expansion of services. First year, none. Focus on learning the business, customer retention, customer service. Let me make sure that's in the frame here. Customer service, increased sales, and business stability during reorganization. So we're going to come into the company, we're going to take over, we're going to need training, we're going to make sure that we retain the customers that we do have and offer other services. One of the things is, going into the year 2, preemptive restocking services, cleaning contracts for small offices. So that's what we're going to be focusing on the first 2 years of business, is making sure that we can making sure that we handle any and everything, not can, but will handle any and everything, and then go on to doing other things such as preemptive restocking services, cleaning contracts, and small offices. Meaning we're going to probably either use a system, or maybe over time I could develop a system. I'm doing a lot more coding projects. As things come up, I just say, hey, listen, I can write something for it. So if I can write something that tracks and monitors customer or starts predicting customer use, doing things like, phone calls. Pause to check Slack. Again, this is my first review of this document, so I want to have these little notes as I'm going through it. doing phone calls to check stock to ensure that, hey, listen, what products are you missing? Is there anything that you need? How can we actually help you? Anything else that we can sell you? Do you think there's something that you need? Hey, we have this new product. Would you like to try it? So on and so forth. Trying to add a little bit more to it trying to add a little bit more to the experience, so that we can do more for the customer. And by doing more for the customer, you've added value to the company and value to the customer themselves. So they say, hey, listen, these guys are really on the ball. They're making sure that I have, the proper cleaning products, making sure that, things are delivered or in place, so on and so forth. And kind of the biggest thing is to somewhat see if you can beat out, online retailers, which is another thing that we're going to be focusing on, in this, right. And that is something I forgot because I thought about it, right. Um, um, so asking owner, hey, how are you guys faring against online retailers? What are your thoughts? Any concerns that you have? Some of these businesses, such as janitorial supplies, depending on what you're doing, there are online retailers. There's larger companies that, such as Quill and other online retailers, even just Amazon for your basic paper products, will outbeat you in terms of price and delivery. But you can also offer other things, and we'll get into that, which is year three. Cleaning contracts, post interior light construction. So, for instance, you have a home that's being built or remodeled, and that home that's being built or remodeled, sorry, that home that's being built or remodeled, they need somebody to dispose of, uh, any construction debris, clean up after the remodeling, making sure that the home is ready. So this is where we would talk more with general contractors. I'll explain that more in the, explanations here. But we'll get into things like equipment rentals, equipment repairs. If the equipment repairs requires a little bit more in terms of staff, but we can always outsource that and then, add a markup on top of that. So maybe even like a 5-10% markup, or just a quick fee. So like a $20-$30 fee just for handling and things like that. Well, essentially what we want to do is become a one-stop shop. So if somebody says, hey, listen, I have this, thing that needs to be fixed. Okay, we'll take it in, and then we'll take a look at it, and then even, get things delivered or transported over for our customers to the repair shop. And then once the repair shop is done with it, then we can go ahead and, once the repair shop is done with it, then we can go ahead and deliver it back to the customer. So that's just, another thing. So that ends the first page. Going on to the second page here. A fourth year. So it just cuts off a little bit. And I'll probably just do something to resize the document a little bit. None. So continue to grow the new business and prep for year 5 by pricing services and equipment. So this is really important. I don't really, for me personally, I don't believe in continuous growth. Rapid and continuous growth, in my mind or in what I've seen, is usually unmanageable, and it could be the undoing or downfall of companies. So what I believe in is, properly tailored and structured growth. So that's why even in the first year, we're focusing on learning the business, maybe even receiving training, customer retention, and other customer services, or increasing customer service and increasing sales, business and stability. So, make sure that the wheel that we have doesn't have any damage on it. And then we start doing things like improving it, putting new tires on it, cleaning up the rims, so on and so forth. Don't even reinvent the wheel, and don't even try and make the wheel even faster or rounder, or another shape. Just refine what you got and then go from there. That's me personally. On a small business like this, I think it's going to be a bit of a rehab project to increase those sales or gain back some of those sales of, bigger clients. And we have a lot that we have to take care of because of the fact that we don't totally know what we're doing or what we're getting into in terms of, what the guy has. And I'll talk more about that later, in terms of training. because that's very important for the first year, 6 months to a year. Getting the proper training from the previous owner and making sure that he's in place that we can call him if anything. um, Cleaning contracts, light to heavy industrial. So that's going to be the biggest thing for our 5th year is getting cleaning contracts for light to heavy industrial companies or jobs. So larger warehouses, cleaning up the floors after construction, getting rid of a lot of the dust, a lot of the debris and metal after a retrofit, after a tear down, probably even getting to larger construction jobs where you're doing multi-story, multi-level homes, or what's it called, buildings, structures. So things like that is, I think that's going to be where our good amount of money is going to be, and then I'll go a little bit more into it in the explanation. So plan in terms of percentages. Year one, first and second year, net 120K. That's what we're looking at, and that's what we're working off of. And this is for a sweat equity buyout. I'm sure there is another name for that, but that's what I'm going to go with. So, with a sweat equity buyout, excuse my handwriting. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's not. I mean, who writes anymore? Come on, just type it out. So, in terms of sweat equity buyout, what we're gonna do, what we would do in terms of a plan. Now, the owner has already expressed that he does not want to do this, but this is what I'm going to present to my business partners, and this is something that I'm going to still try and press with the customer and see if he can sell it this way, because who knows, he might not like it now, but he might like it a year or so from now when he has to get rid of the business and nobody takes it over. Who knows? He might have already sold it because I haven't contacted him in about a week or so because I've just been doing a lot of other stuff with the salon. But I got time now. Percentage of the business, actual 50%. So 50%, 120K net, will come home with 60. My business partner Renaud gets 5K a month. Business remainder is saved for expansion. Partners get 0. Essentially, again, if we're coming in with a sweat equity buyout, the pie is just not big enough to support everybody for everybody to get money. And then also, I have no problem not making any money on a deal. I think it's important that you be patient, and I have no problem making no money on a deal on a company as long as I make the initial investment, in terms of, if I can just make an initial investment of time and no money down or little to no money down, then I have no problem allowing that investment to mature so I can get to that number there, because that's kind of like buying a home a little bit. You're just going to keep on putting money into it in terms of your mortgage, in terms of your time, in terms of the labor costs and other things and all the other bills and expenses. And then you're going to wait for this payday right here once you're selling it, or it's making more money for you, especially for rental properties. I'm not a flipper. I am a renter landlord type person in terms of investments. All right, so going on, and then also comment below if that makes sense to you. If it doesn't, like, I'd like to know. And then if you guys have any other ideas. So Renaud gets 5K a month, a livable wage. Renaud has 2 kids, a wife, and then I think he takes care of his mother-in-law as well. So if he can come in, he does all the work, he gets all the training. I come in, I back him up. My other business partner backs him up as well. This would be like a 3, maybe a 4-way partnership, depending on who's coming in and what they can actually offer the business. Nobody just comes in and just, hey, I want to be your business partner. It's like, no, you're gonna have to do something for that. Especially if you want to get to that part and understand that. And then, of course, you have to work well with one another to ensure that the plan is successful. Going into third and maybe even going into the 4th year. By the 3rd year, I think we can increase sales up to 260K. I think that's totally possible in terms of cleaning contracts, increasing sales, adding more revenue streams, such as equipment rentals, equipment sales, equipment repairs, maybe even increasing or expanding our business to online, if possible, with some of the products that we have, and making sure things get shipped out properly. So I think we can actually increase our net take home to 260K. By that time, we're going to ask for a percentage of business of 75%, maybe even more by then, maybe even 100%. If everything's going well and this sweat equity buyout plan does go through, and we don't have to come up with 350 grand off the rip, then we can do something like this. And this way, actually, we're getting, we've increased, we've actually really almost like double. Yeah, it's double. Yeah, more than double. So we've more than doubled what he's getting, and then, or more than doubled what he was taking home before, and then getting a larger percentage of that pie. So we keep on paying him out, and the fact that he has 25%, that 25% goes to him, and that goes to the sale price, which is here. So 350K. Now, again, we'd have to, I'd have to do proper math on that and making sure that everything looks good, and actually we can actually pay for a lot of this stuff in that period of time. Maybe even acquire a loan by then, or acquire even more get even more in terms of sales. Because if I take 260K, let's break out the handy dandy calculator here. So 260K times 0.75, so that's 195 grand. 260 minus 195, that's 65K. So now I'm giving them 65K at that point. What we could do in that case is at 195, we take our piece of the pie, and that 195 that we would have, so like times 0.75 equals 195 for us. Renaud still gets a livable wage, so that's 60 grand a year, and that's 135 grand. And then that 135 grand, 0.25. So if you add the 0.25 plus that, so add the 25 to this plus that, or equals 0.25 should equal 65 grand. So 65 grand plus 135. So 65 grand plus 135. Yes, I did use the calculator for that. Is 200K. So if he's taking home 120K, and then we subtract Renaud's livable wage, or our 50%, then that's equals 60K. So he's looking at 260K by the third year. Going into the fourth, fifth year, then we can take over 100% and then finish paying him out. Again, taking more of our pie. Again, that's very, very aggressive, and that's probably not going to happen like that, but that's the potential of the plan, depending on how everything else goes, especially if there are other sources of income for us. Again, we have the Renaud and I are business partners with the salon, and Jamel and I are business partners with my IT services company. Again, these are people that I've worked with already for years, and I try to build my team with current team members, especially if we're still in good standing and there's no issues or problems that I perceive, and I believe that they can actually be a benefit to this operation. Going into the third year, business gets 10% off top. So again, I have to change those numbers, right? Business gets 10% towards expansion. So that goes into this little bank account or a savings account, and making sure that we have money for expansion. Now, that's not a lot of money, but it's something to start. And then we can probably even take that and use that 10% in terms of capital for down payment and equipment, down payment, or paying for training, and probably even going towards hiring certain personnel and getting other equipment so that we can expand our services, because there's a lot into all of this. And a lot of this stuff, nothing goes as planned. This might just be a total wash, and I can't do any of this stuff, right? It may not the deal just might not happen. Renaud still gets 5K a month, making sure that Renaud is paid for. So usually where I run operations is I have a 3-step or a 3 a 3 level approach. Level 1, or the face of the company, or tier 1, I should say, the face of the company. That's the person that you see every day that's working at running on your day-to-day operations and doing things to be the face of the company, and making sure that things run smoothly. I don't know how else to say that. 2, that's backup to level 1. So, or tier 1. Your tier 2 person is your backup. They offer other support, or support in other ways, and support in other ways. So Jamel would be like a tier 2 person. So he's going to come in to back up Renad, making sure that any and all things are good, and so we can offload any work that Renad has. Tier 3 would be me. I'd be way back in the back, somewhat of a silent partner, because I'm already at tier 2 in the salon. And tier 1 in the salon is Michael, my business partner. And then I'm the tier 2, and then tier 3 in this case is Renad. So with me running the salon, Renad can take the tier 1 position and then run the actual business. And this is what I usually work with in terms of like when I'm building dream teams. I really just kind of started phrasing things like that. So that's something that definitely I think is very important. Or different, definitely a decent hierarchy or a way to approach this. It's fairly simple. Build a 3-man, 4-man team, and then go from there. From here, partners, probably by year 3, partners should start getting paid. We should start getting some money, some return on our investment in terms of time and any capital that we put up. By year 4, 4 and 5th, and or 5th, I think we can increase our net sale, our net, to 400 to 500K. Now, taking that and taking 10% of that, then we can start getting into what we're going to need to the type of money we're talking about in terms of getting our larger contracts, making sure that we can have payroll in place for contracts that take a long time to pay out. You have to look at those things, because some contracts you might have to have 6 months to a year worth of payroll, especially if you're working for larger companies, operations that don't pay immediately. Such as, like, even if you like do work, I've heard, for instance, a customer of mine in my IT business, he did advertising work for Disney. And with his advertising work that he did for Disney, they would take 6 months. They would pay out 6 months later. So he would have to front all the costs and wait 6 months to get paid. But with that, he can pad it a little bit. So by the time he does get paid, it's a nice big chunk of money coming in, and everything. Then he can just start to cycle over again. And then of course it's a larger company, so you're gonna deal with that when dealing with somebody like Disney. So that's where that 10% would go. And again, that goes back into like things like the Book of Babylon, The Richest Man in Babylon, where they talk about, saving 10%, living off of 70%, and then your other 20% would go towards paying any creditors if you have any. And this goes towards expansion, making sure that we can pay any other business expense, rental expenses, and payroll and things like that. And then whatever's left over is even split amongst the partners. And by this time, we own 100% of the company, and then previous owner fully paid it off. If that works, then that's great. All right, so go into the explanation, and we'll try and read through this real quick so we can wrap the video up. Year 1 and 2 explained. Renad heads the business and takes enough profit for a livable wage for the first and second year. During this time, Renad works to learn the ins and outs of the operation and trains Jamel going into the second year. They both work to increase sales, establish, expand cleaning services, as well as establish equipment rental services. Goals: $300 a day, 6 days a week in cleaning contracts by year 2 of operations. Again, I'm into slow growth. I know it'll take a while. Again, this is year 1 and 2. By year two, let's correct that. Again, reading through this for the first time, so trying to get all these. By year 2 of operations, make sure it's a big X so I see it. By year 2 of operations, with money set aside to purchase equipment for rental business. And again, what we want to go to is actually doing equipment rentals and taking that money and reinvesting it back into the company so we can actually start hitting some of these goals here and onto that. Because once you start rolling like a juggernaut and getting larger, getting more services, then I can start saying, all right, cool, we're going to have to get a larger space. And that's probably something that's going to happen if things go fairly well. Again, we also have to account for things such as economic downturns, which is going to be coming again. Potential increase in revenues, 93.9K. I came up with that number. So, for instance, if I have a calculator here, $300 a day times, I think it's 313 days, which is 365 minus 52, because we only be working 6 days a week on these things, at least one day off, depending on the teams. This does not account for any, and again, this is gross. This does not account for any expenses that come with that. So 300 times 313 is $93,900. So if I'm cleaning offices for 6 days a week, especially on the weekends and things like that, and I have at least $300 a day in terms of contracts, that's $150 for about like a 2-hour work window. You might pay your guy $50 to maybe $50 or so per night for these contracts. So you're looking at $100. So for instance, if I'm taking, that's $200. So that's $150 per job, 2 jobs per night. And that is $50. So 300. So 300 minus $50. So that's 250 times 313 days out of the year that we'll be working on that. And this is on average. You might have 3 jobs in one night. You might have emergencies and things like that. You're looking at even a net, probably even closer to 78 grand. Again, that does not take out for any cleaning materials, equipment that you have, and things like that. You might want to cut off another close to 5-10 grand, depending on what you get in terms of your vehicles and things like that. Because if you have your vehicles, then if you have your vehicle expenses, that goes up, especially if you're traveling a lot and traveling far distances. So that can get cut down to about 60K net. Yeah, you see what that is. That was so messed up. So 60K net, right? I could probably net about 60K, and that'll increase, that'll get us to this 120K, or get us past this 120K mark as far as net take home is. And then by third year, we can actually get more and more contracts, and then we can actually reach this. Year 3 and 4 explained. By this point, we should have built up a decent monetary surplus from increased sales and earnings. Let's make sure that's in there. Increased sales and earnings from new income streams to expand services further by adding equipment sales, rental, and repair services. Repair services can be sent to a repair shop. We partner repair shop. I think of that. Either of that or comma would go there. All right. Either that or comma would go there. Sent to repair shop. We partner with at an agreed markup. Okay, we're on screen. Our agreed markup. Then we can move the operation completely in-house once we hire an experienced technician. So a lot of that is contingent on if we can hire an experienced technician, and how much that's going to cost us. Maybe we can even do some of the repairs ourselves if we get like the manuals for some of these things. It just depends. Some of these things do require better electrical equipment, and then of course it might be just easier to partner with somebody and then just get the markup and deal with the back and forth and be the middleman in between the customer. So that's that. Goals for year 3 and 4. Okay. Explore and break into light construction cleanup contracts, focusing on home remodeling and or demolition. Working with contractors and service workers that deal in this industry. I can write that sentence better. Reword. I think I can make that a little bit flow a little bit better in terms of readability. Deal in this industry. Also, having a clear target of obtaining restaurant contracts for kitchen cleaning and reselling disposal services. So, kitchen cleaning, like cleaning the kitchen hoods, sanitizing kitchen surfaces and stuff like that on a nightly basis. Especially if we can just do that very well, we can come in and clean larger restaurants, higher end restaurants every night, and sanitize it for the next day. That's a lot of money. That's really good money. You can charge some really good money for that. They do the cleaning maybe every night, and then we can come in every other night, every week or so, or every once a month, and do a really good sanitation of the location. Potential growth. I believe. Believe with. I believe. I think the word should be this on that one. I believe this will bring 20 to 30K in the first 2 years, but that all depends on our relationships with those connected to this industry. A serious investment into management of projects, ensuring that we meet all deadlines while maintaining competitive pricing. Add more. I'm either going to add more, just make it a little bit succinct, but we'll see about that. Now, this is very important. You can grow and get all these new contracts and customers and stuff like that, but if you can't handle the business and handle the back end stuff and make sure that you have the actual office workers to handle all this stuff, after a while, like one man can't really handle that. You're going to have 2 to 3 people in your office to make sure that customer service and attentiveness to these projects is done. Talking with owners of these businesses, making sure that, hey, did we clean properly? Do you see any problems? Is there any issues? Making sure that we follow up with the customer, sending out emails, having an employee send out those emails, and focusing on that. So that's something that's very important. And that's why I believe in slower growth rather than crazy expansion. You also you're going to have to increase and bolster your team. Year 5, explain. The main focus will be moving into heavy industrial cleaning. This will require increased manpower and a competent office team to maintain customer relations and ensure we are ready to take on the tasks that are necessary. Training. What's it called? Training and finish. I guess I was in such a rush to make the darn video, I didn't even finish the damn sentence. So I'll finish that up. So making sure that we have training and increased insurance. Yeah, increased insurance. So when you're getting into heavy industrial cleaning, like that's larger contracts. They're paying you an exorbitant amount of money to actually clean some of these larger warehouses. Now, as you may know, there's going to be large automation for these warehouses, but guess what? They're still going to need somebody for the time being to clean up some of these things and get into the nooks and crannies where some of these robots can't get into. And if you can actually put yourself in the right spot for this, you could be making quite a bit of money, of course, right? So, I mean, wishful thinking, right? Goals. Ensure that we maintain a high quality for the newly added services as we expand. That's the biggest goal. I mean, my goal in that case is not to really look at just money, but making sure that we're spending money in the right areas to ensure that we keep our customers and retain our customers. Especially at the salon, I work on customer retention, listening to other people and their gripes and concerns, and then executing plans to ensure that they are satisfied at the end of the day and they want to give me their money. All right. Potential increase in revenue. I'm really unable to quantify at this time. At this time, um, industrial work takes a large initial investment in equipment, personnel, and training. This all may require a loan as well as a large investment in time to properly manage liability. Um, so it's going to take a lot to actually do industrial cleaning. The equipment that we're going to have to get, we're probably going to have to get like riding vacuums, riding machines that we can actually ride and actually do all these cleanings for these larger projects. You know, you can't just do it with something that's using your hand, or you're dealing with. You can't do it in a timely fashion. You know, like just because you're coming in with the lowest price doesn't mean they want you to take a month to actually clean the floors. They might want you to do it in a 8 hour turnaround. By the next day, you should have already cleaned out a large warehouse of, say, 10 to 20,000 square feet. You know, like imagine that. It's like 10 of like the house that I live in. You know, the salon is 3,700 square feet, and that takes time to clean up. You know, so that's 3 to 6 times bigger than 20,000 would be like 6 times, almost 7 times bigger than the salon we have now. So you have to look at those things because that is very important. Making sure that you have everything in place in terms of trucks, the proper personnel, proper insurance, liability, and bonding. The training for that personnel, that's expensive personnel too, and you're gonna have to actually give them work all the time. You know, either that or you can even actually look into contracting that out and then just going after getting contracts. That's another thing. And you can actually make good money off of that too by just contracting the work, getting the contracts, especially military contracts. If you have a veteran on staff or somebody that contracts out to you, and then you can just subcontract out to someone else. You know, just buying and or what's it called, um, bidding. Yeah, that's what it is. Bidding for some of these contracts. All right. So I need more info in terms. I need more info from the owner. I need an asset list. I look some of this stuff up and make sure, like, there's a couple of things I had, a couple sections that I had, like this section and that section, but the other sections were added by doing a quick Google search, making sure that I covered my ASS, making sure that and I got everything, and take that out. Asset list. We're in screen. Okay. Asset list. We basically need to know what is being sold and what is not, from inventory, equipment, and even intellectual property such as domain names and patents. Customer of mine, they actually had patents for treating foam to make it even harder. So a lot of these columns that you see, or even the siding that you see on some of these buildings, they're just their foam, which is a very lightweight material that actually is pretty decent in terms of it withstanding any weather, but it'll do that if you treat it properly with chemicals. And those chemicals, there's patents behind those chemical formulas. So this customer, that he actually created a lot of these different these formulations, and he had them patented. If you sell the company, do I have access to those patents? Can I reuse them? Can I license them? Do I have to buy them from you? Can I buy them wholesale? You know, is there anything that you have that is special that would make that I would need to actually run this business? You can sell me the name of the business. You can sell me the book of business, all your customers, and access to them. You can sell me all your equipment, but then you have that one little patent, that one thing that I need to actually run this business, and you're saying, oh no, that's another 100K. And you can kind of hold me hostage. So you have to watch out for that. Verification of revenue. So this goes back into the first page. All this information is unverified. I need actual verification of this. So this is probably probably one of the bigger portions of it that a lot of people focus on. Not saying that these other things aren't important, but this is this is where the money is. Profit and loss statements, also known as P&Ls. for the past 5 years. If they have them, 3 years would be good. But if it's a company that's been open for quite a bit of time, I'd expect you to have those or have access to those, or can actually get them from your CPA. Bank statements for the past 6 to 18 months. So making sure that we have bank statements that verify any that verify your income and show any issues. And that's where a forensic accounting comes into play, and making sure that we have somebody that can actually look at these things and look over it with a fine tooth comb, making sure this company's worth what it actually is, and that goes into valuation. Um, Record of sales and payroll, employment taxes. So any sales that they have, and payroll and employment taxes that they've paid, making sure that they have been paying them, that there aren't any liens or anything like that. Um, no liens or other obligations. So, may need a document that proves this, or a letter of indemnification. And that might require that we actually have to run some type of credit report against them, if that's possible. Some things like Better Business Bureau or other things that might be available to verify that the company is a legit company and they're in good standing. Excuse me. But most of that is really our due diligence and not so much theirs. They can actually just lie and say, "Oh no, yeah, we're good." Um, operating expenses um, should be in profit and loss, but may be requested separately with verification of amounts. So things like their rent, the bills, light, water, phones, etc. A lump sum should be fine as well. Like, hey, listen, we pay about $1,000 in expenses. Payroll, advertising, um, what's it called? Six. Equipment, maintenance. So making sure that the equipment is properly maintained. Any records of that as well would be good. Or just at least say, hey, listen, they actually fixed their shit. That's awesome. Lease information. And then actually going back to this lease, before we go into lease information, equipment maintenance. So, hey, listen, if you're not maintaining your equipment, that's important. It's important that you know if this person is maintaining their equipment or not. Do they have proper support contracts? Do they have anything just in case the equipment goes down? Do they have uh, a second source for this type of equipment so that we can actually get back up and running? Lease information. Can we assume take over your lease and the cost? So essentially, gotta word that better. Reword. This is probably the more important part because I have to send this to the owner. So I'm actually working on this first. This will require discussion with the landlord before purchase to verify, review your current lease agreement, and draft up a lease for our organization. Right. So, I mean, it's not just, hey, I buy your business and I move right in. The landlord might not even like you. The landlord might be selling the building. They might have other things going on. As this guy said to me in our personal conversation, he said, hey, listen, just pay it and that's it. So he's cool with the landlord, but you might not like my black ass. So things like that, he might say, "Oh, okay, well, you're a new person. I've been meaning to up the rent on this guy, but he's always bullshitting me, and he never does this, blah blah blah. I'm the new owner of the building, or the building might be sold." And he might say, "Hey, listen, no, I can get more money for this space because the area says this and this, so on and so forth." And we have to actually understand that and see that, because we have to actually forecast and project properly and make models in terms of how that's going to hit our how that's going to affect our net. Like first, second, third year, what's going to happen in our fifth year? Do we have any renewals? Do we have any other agreements? Um, the building might be sold, and then we just get kicked out, and they'll be like, "Well, we had an agreement with the last guy, not your ass. Get out." Training, and this is training from the owner. Last two sections, promise. Will you be able to stick around for a minimum of 3 to 6 months? I really want him for a year, but 3 to 6 months is probably all you're going to get with an older person that wants to get the hell out of Dodge. For a minimum of 3 to 6 months to train us in the day-to-day operations so that we may make a smooth transition, ensuring customer retention. So making sure that he still answers the phone, shows his face, that he sees that, or he that customers see that he's still around. Oh, well, this guy, Rick used to always do this for me, and then we can just verify and make sure that they're not trying to like pull the wool over our eyes and just trying to get some free or some other type of cheap services. So that's important, making sure that the previous owner of the business, before they sell it to you, is willing to stay around. Employees. And this is a question, he could lie about this as well, but do you feel the employees will stay around after a change in management? Question marks. All right. Change in management. If not, we need to know to make proper arrangements. We also need to know if considerations or promises were made that we have to honor, such as pay increases. That's important. He might say that he might have told the secretary that he's boning on the side that, hey, yeah, I'm gonna make sure that you get this much money, baby. Don't worry about it. Just come up to my office real quick. Like, and she might want you to honor that. I'm like, I'm not gonna honor that. So and things like that, because you don't want to be hit with too many unforeseen expenses or increases in expenses. And you also want to make sure that you retain the actual current people that are there that are actually working the business, and then they can teach you before they either leave or before you maybe even make them like a manager or something like that in the business. So it's just something to look at. Basically, that's it. I went through this 3-page document here that I just wrote up. I do have quite a bit to rework. There's a couple notes that we put in there together. But I'm going to go through this again here and focus mainly on this last portion so that I can actually go send this off to the gentleman to ask for these questions. And then once I have a better view of what's going on, and then I do my due diligence, then I can actually start doing things like getting more investors, getting more larger investors or people with larger amounts of money, because anything over $2,000 or so, like, even anything over $100, people want to know where it's going and what's going to happen. And then maybe even presenting this plan to him to say, hey, listen, this is what I'm thinking. If I can do this, then we can make a deal and make it happen. Especially working out some of these numbers too, because they're going to have to be better. Especially if in terms of, being aggressive and paying him down and everything like that. It's a lot of money that we have to look at, and that's a lot of money that we'll be on the line for to make sure that he gets paid. And we want to make sure in this deal that he gets a fair deal, gets a fair shake, and it's not any BS or anything like that. And then making sure that we can actually hit some of these numbers and make sure this business is going to be profitable for us, because it might be something where we're like, oh, screw this is not going to work, and then you can't deal with that 5 years into it, and 5, 6 years, and the business goes down the drain. Also, we have to look at things like preparing for the economic downturn that we're going to experience, um, and how we can battle that, and how we can make sure that uh, we stay competitive in terms of services that we're offering, pricing that we have. People can just go to eBay and get their toilet and paper products. They can go to other customers, or they can go to other vendors for all this stuff. So there's a lot of stuff, moving parts, and I'm not even touching the surface. Honestly, I'm just looking at it. I'm not even touching the surface of what you have to do. In something like this, this is a decent skeleton, if you will, a zygote, but there's a lot more to it. So thank you guys for watching, especially if those are what they're going to be watching on the replay. Appreciate it, and as always, thank you.